weird ass AI. All right, brother. So tell everybody who you are.
I am John Keene. I am the host of the Best Damn Podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, D Live, basically anywhere on the internet. I've been doing this somewhere since around 2016. I cover conspiracy theories, all that's odd, strange, the occult, and esoteric wisdom, the mysteries, a lot of what you'd call covering things about the Illuminati and those kind of subjects as well. I also do astrology and I read tarot. Um, I've been at it for a long time. One of the things that kind of got me into all of this uh, was really I had a vivid dream years and years ago. I had
Mm,
kind of just gotten out of prison, was um, starting to get into the spiritual world, and it was like through religion, but I had questions. And when I asked questions to the pastors and the people at the church I was attending at that time, they didn't have any answers. Matter of fact, they kind of scolded me for asking. So I went home,
mm,
I was atheist. I didn't believe in any of the spiritual shit, any of that. It's like, and I'm still not a believer in organized religion in any way, shape, or form. So I went home and I
sure.
prayed, and I was just like, God, if you would just show me the truth, I will give you my life. I'll let you use me in the most powerful way. And about 2 weeks later, I had this crazy fucking dream of a giant red striped planet in the sky, which kind of led me down the Planet X rabbit hole and all of that, which just one thing after another. Years later, and now I do astrology, tarot. I went viral on a million different platforms. I've got to work with some of the greatest minds, I feel like, in our field. And, so I feel very, very lucky. I've got to travel all over the United States as a result of this. It's been fucking awesome, It's been awesome. And
Hell
I
yeah, man.
found your stuff on Instagram. And I'm telling you what, it's like one of the more impressive shows that I've seen. So I'm really excited about joining you today.
Man, I appreciate that, man. A lot of effort goes into editing these things, man. People don't I think people underestimate it, for them it's just a video. They have no idea how many hours of editing goes into just like a 30-second clip.
Yeah.
It's tricky to find the right content and stuff. But now, I found you through a podcast as well, and you were speaking on Gnosticism and the archons, and not so much politics as in like, oh, who's president, but more like why they're president, how they got
Hmm.
chosen, and so
Yeah.
we definitely agree on so many of these topics, but Gnosticism being the one where I was like, dude, this dude it's a subject I've kind of studied a little bit. I've been kind of in and out of. I'm more so, into the occult and,
Hmm.
like basically the head of the dragon in this whole thing, and the Templars and how far that goes back, and the Knights Hospitaller and all that shit. But the Gnostics is really where you have me super intrigued, man. You crushed that podcast, so that's why we're here today, dude. So if you could give us a little bit of information on like Gnosticism, what it is, just to give people like a little bit of a brief synopsis of what we're going to talk about here.
Okay, so Gnosticism, basically, the word derived from gnosis, which means knowledge or
Mm,
knowing, right? It was one of the earlier sects of what a lot of the original Christians actually came out of. Like this would be probably that, like the Essenes, those that were looking into the mysteries, right? Like that we would consider Crusaders, Templars, things like that. This is like the real truth of our world, of our reality, and it has layers of understanding. A lot of times you'll hear things like Rosicrucianism, the occult, into Luciferianism, Satanism. There's different veins, but it's all really comes out of that gnosis, those mysteries, that inner knowledge. So basically, what they believe is that um, kind of counter to the biblical story that we were given knowledge and that there is a demiurge which is made up of a governing body which we would actually call in astrology, we call it the planets, right? It's the archons. It would be deities, demigods, demons, anything like that, which is made up of like the secondary spiritual matter. So you have like the sun, which is photonic light. It's positive, positive energy. And then on the next
Mm.
level, you have like soul energy, which is like our lower self, our carnal self, our ego, our persona, right? This is makes up kind of like what we call the governing energy or the archonic energy. So all of these are masks that we wear. We're all kind of one. You ever heard of Osiris, like in the mysteries, one soul infinitely resurrecting in spirit? All of us are animated by what we call God. Well, what makes up the uniqueness of us on the individual level, on this level, which it talks about in the Bible, that we were actually created in the image. Image means a phantom, a projection, or an illusion. So we are actually a
Mm.
reflection of something at a higher dimensional level, right? So the light's kind of bouncing through this filter or prism that we call the Earth, coming from these stars, these planets, which are beaming frequencies down, and that actually controls and animates the reality through like holographic projection. It's called soul luminescence or star in a jar, right? The bending of light causing
Mm.
things to vibrate and move at a frequency. We're that frequency. And what rules this physical world, this physical reality, is the influence of the planets and the stars. What we call Satan, the fatherly spirit, all father, God of this world, this, the Saturnian death cults, all the cube energy, the cube Allah, the cube father, that kind of runs what we would call the Saturn moon matrix, or what makes up our physical paradigm, our plane of existence or reality. Earth being like this petri dish where all these energies come together and manifest in a physical way, right? Where
Mm.
matter, where energy vibrates at such a low frequency that it slows down and becomes matter, right? And this is the physical world. And it's all about the transference of energy, electromagnetism. Everything from the sun to the stars is all light and sound, right? And sound is matter. Sound is nothing but light vibrating at such a low density, a low frequency, that it begins to vibrate and actually make friction, create inertia, or what we call gravity, magnetism, holding particles together. So these influences through Gnosticism is like this process essentially of understanding what we call, like in the Bible, they say we wrestle not against flesh but against the principalities, powers, and dominions of this world. The principalities, powers, and dominions. Princes is another word for planet, actually. Um, and
Mm.
the powers and dominions, these are at the dimensional level, right? So the frequencies that are dominating or vibrating at different dimensions and different levels, these are what we're actually up against. This is what influences us. This is why when you have certain conjunctions, or like we have today, this is really weird that today we're doing this and there's a solar eclipse, right? New moon in
Mm.
Aries, a solar eclipse. We just so happen to choose to do this podcast on an eclipse day. This is like something that a
Mm.
powerful event where our sun gets eclipsed by the moon, and for a moment, the photons from the sun don't hit us, and it allows us to reset energetically and start something new, to start a new version of ourselves or a
Mm.
new chapter in our lives, right? So each and every planet is a deity and it has an archetype. And if you like get into Carl Jung,
Mm-hmm.
Madame Blavatsky, like any of the people that, a lot of psychology is really, like a different version. And science in itself, whether we're looking at, chemistry, psychology, all of these derive from the occult and from the sacred sciences, which is like the true gnosis, So practicing those,
Mm.
and there's seven of them, seven sacred sciences that we can use to kind of decipher our reality. And this matrix, right, that's driven by this demiurge, this body of demigods that rules everything, is essentially like a computer program. That's where people get like the simulation theory. Each thing having like a formula or a frequency, an energetic frequency, an energetic signature for of uniqueness, which is a pattern, a magnetic pattern, and it's why it behaves the way it does. Like, for instance, your algorithm of who you are is your birth date, right? What the numbers, there's a numerical code for your birth date, there's an astrological code for your birth date, the way that it's called a natal chart, the way that the stars were aligned when you were born. The name that they
Mm.
used to call you by is also part of that algorithm, right? Whenever we're invoking daemons, which are personas or masks that we wear. You're a demon. I'm a demon. It didn't used to have a negative connotation back with the Greeks. See, they understood all of this shit and how it worked. We only, with Christianity and the modern eras of religions, have we started to adopt demon as a negative thing. Like, so
Mm.
demon being a disembodied spirit, it's one of those personas that are no longer attached to soul, right? It's in purgatory. It's existing disconnected from the light, and we all have masks that we wear. Matter of fact, every 5 years they say our mask changes. It's because of the cycles of the
Mm.
sun and astrological cycles. We're constantly orbiting on cycles within ourselves. Our cells are round. They're operating on cycles within your body. Your body has a
Right, right.
cyclical system. It's a binary code, ones and zeros, fight or flight, left and right brain, positive, negative, red and blue. Right? These are all making up the duality of the system. Right? And that's the
Hmm.
good evil paradigm. And that kind of gets into dualism and sophism, which is all basically in the same vein. No matter which way we chop it up, anytime you take it back, you're taking it back to the heart of things. You're taking it back to that Gnostic knowing, right? Which is kind of like that purest, truest form of the knowledge, and you can call it serpent knowledge. And it's a good word for it because some people call it Kundalini knowledge, right? That's that Kundalini or that serpent being activated within
Mm.
your body, right? Which sends that sacred secretion, which opens that third eye, which is, if thine eye be single, then thy whole body be filled with light, which is what we would call illumination or initiation, right? And initiation starts in Aries season, which is weird, right? The new moon in Aries, something is initiated.
Right.
It begins. It's the first astrological or zodiacal sign. So the zodiac is also, we have these 12 archetypes that make up each one of us, according to Carl Jung. The 12
Mm.
archetypes are like the zodiacal wheel or the cycle of the main personalities um, in the solar system, the soul system, right? The sun's called soul. We live in a solar system, a soul system. And the main 12 personalities are the 12 archetypes of the zodiac wheel. So from January
Mm.
on, they're all a different creature. And it's only Virgo and Gemini are the only ones represented by human beings at all. It's all animal spirits. That's why in
Right, right.
demonology, demons are always animal spirits. We when we
Mm.
were given dominion over all the plants and animals back in Genesis, right, with Adam and Eve. And if you look at the hypostasis or the reality of the rulers, it's the hypostasis of the archons is another name for the text. It's a Gnostic text. It talks about this same story, except it talks about the archons actually being the serpents or the ones who put us in the physical world, right? So they were the ones
Mm.
working from behind the scenes trying to raise Adam up. So they tricked Adam thinking that he came from them, right? Because they were alike in nature. They both had personas, physical identities, right? But Adam had a living soul. He actually had the divine spark. They were trying to trap the divine spark in mass, in matter, in darkness, right? So they could absorb it. That's why you hear things like energy vampire and shit like that, or psychic vampirism, or the adrenochrome shit with all the elites, right? It's them feeding off of energy because, like I said, everything's electromagnetic. We're batteries, like in essence, we are batteries.
Yeah,
And
for
go ahead.
for sure, because I know that so when you take the electromagnetic field, right? You ever seen the picture of it, how it all starts at the center, which is our heart, every heartbeat. We have the two ovals that go on either side of us now. science has explained that they go about 3 feet on either side, which would give you about 6 feet. Now, during the whole pandemic, you saw that they wanted us all 6 feet apart. Now, why
That's
is
right.
that? So we're no longer in each other's energetic field. And also, for those that don't know, that picture that you see with the person and the two ovals coming off of them, which represents the magnetic field, is also where they got the concept of angel wings long ago. That's talking about your field, right? That is displaying the wings coming off of the body. That's why wings always kind of, come all the way to the top and then they kind of swoop down in that oval. So that's long ago when they kind of claimed that symbolism. When it comes to the archons and such, who exactly are they to the Gnostics in the story? And if you could kind of tie them into what's going on now, how would that work?
Um, if we tie them into what's going on now, I think like first off, like you ever heard of reptilians? It's the reptile brain.
Sure.
We are the archons in essence, right? Like we're part of that demiurge as well. It's the physical, lower carnal half of us, which we are connected to. Also, we have the light, we have the dark.
Mm,
So we're connected to both worlds, both realities. It would be that underlying force that we call Satan, the ruler of this world, the prince of the power of the air, however you want to look at it. That actually pulls the strings of the physical reality. That's actually it's an entity made up of many entities. That's the concept of selling your soul. You're giving up individuality to join this hive mind. That's why technology mimics creation, right? So there's a worldwide web trapping our web of consciousness, right? And they're neural
hmm
networks, just like the neurons that fire in our brain, sending these electrical impulses or signals, right? And then they use frequency, fifth generation technology, humanity 5.0, right? Kind of to mess with our DNA. They're as we're ingesting all of these genetically modified foods, shitty water, shitty air, and all of the other stuff that we know they were making people, put in their bodies to keep their jobs and all of that a few years ago. Um, that would be
hmm
that power that's disconnected from the light, that's feeding off of the energy or the soul of humanity. You could, a lot of people say, they're the Illuminati, but I honestly I don't believe that to be true. I feel like there's levels of something, there's levels of things, and when you look at the darkness as a whole, it's at a lower frequency. Matter of fact, it's like a slave frequency. I feel like those who are actually pulling the
hmm
strings and have the power would never be nowhere near down there. That's for the masses, and they're taught like, oh, it's they're all Satanist and they're doing this, but no, they're just bombarding you with that, right? You're repeating that, you're spreading that, and that's a frequency. That's a distorted frequency, which is in turn distorting you. It's
hmm
slowing down your vibration so you can't vibe higher. And we're all collectively connected. So as a whole, we can't vibe higher because we're being broadcast with this shit,
mm
right? It's kind of slowing our energy down so they can get it out quicker. That's why we live longer, and it's like that's our battery being drained, our soul being drained. And when our life is over, we're out of energy, you know. And we transfer energy too. I think it might have been I seen it on your channel, but it was something I heard forever ago that everything from us touching the earth to hugging a dog to anything is like actually
Yeah.
us being conductors, right? So we act as antennas everywhere we go. So the powers that be are bombarding us with a low negative distorted frequency, why they themselves have nothing to do with that shit, right? They themselves know that to
Hmm.
actually control the collective consciousness, you have to be at a higher state, right? You have to be tapped in, tuned in to a place that's out of reach. That's why when they talk about Christ, which is Christos or anointing, right? That's, the sacred secretion, the anointing, right? That actually being activated within you, your crown chakra, your third eye, that's full awakened, that's full kundalini, and that's all the yogis and everything, spiritual gurus, alchemists, hermeticists, they're all practicing the same process, right? On how to master thoughts, master emotions, which is energy in motion, right? Your emotions. So, and control
Mm-hmm.
the flow of that serpent energy. That way they stay at this place in the crown, which gives them dominion energetically over everyone and everything else,
Mm.
right? So they feed you all the bullshit and they feed off of you because they know how to flip the energy, right? They know how to take something dark, distorted, and turn it into something positive, turn it into light. It's called transmutation, right? You're transmuting something, right? So they can take the most base, ugly things and flip it right around, right? Because they understand that good and evil are part of the paradigm. They don't actually exist. They're part of the same frequency. It's just where you're at on the energetic spectrum, you know?
Mm. So, with that being said, I mean that connects a lot of dots for the way they operate with society. I mean, they give people, all of these pills to kind of mask, a lot of our emotions, and you'll notice that for fucking decades now, man, they treat the darkness and anger and any sort of angst is being anxiety, right? There's a root word of anxiety, and then they keep you in this depressed, depressed state, just to try to keep you constantly low, and then explain to you, with their medical interventions, that you need to fear anger, you need to fear darkness, you need to fear that side of you. When it's crazy, because what you're saying is that is us. That's
Yeah,
exactly what we are, is darkness. I mean, the inside of us, if we are spiritual beings having a human experience, then, well, you can't see the spirit. It would all be inside of you, which is dark, right? So it's kind of like to keep us away intentionally from ourselves. It seems like that's the fucking game plan then. So
yeah,
it sounds to me like the Gnostics kind of had it, partway figured out, in a sense, with their belief system. I know that, like many religions, that that they had these little factions and sectors that were just fucking destroying each other, and everybody gets greedy, cults get crazy. But
yeah.
so with the Gnostics and what they believe, what differentiates the Gnostics from modern Christians?
Oh, the way that they perceive Jesus would be number one to me.
Mm,
When we look at Christianity, that's what we would call the exoteric, which means it's external point of view. God's up in the
yep.
sky. Jesus is a man that you can't be, and everything's outside of yourself, right? Uh, and angels are actual individual beings that will intervene only if you're worthy, right? It's you throwing down your birthright from day one, right? And giving it up to this invisible entity, and that's where they call it faith. Um, as opposed to Gnosticism is seeing yourself as Christ. It's like saying we're all Christ. We all are the sons of God. We're all the Atma, the Adam, um, and every one of us had that divine birthright, and that Jesus is a process of dying to this world,
Right.
dying to this reality, dying to your egoic self, in essence, right? And finding, the Christ within, that, that anointing, So anytime we see like Mashiach, Messiah, it's Savior, it's one who saves himself or saves the world. He died for the sins of the world, Sins actually means sound, like, so he died for the lower self, and it's like dying to the lower self. That's why when
Mm.
he's crucified on the cross, he's pierced 5 times, right, for the 5 senses. It's like, and it's all
Oh
also an
shit.
astrological story as well. It's about the equinox and the solstice that takes place on December 21st every year, right? It's the sun rising 3 days later. It's a solstice story.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
notice
yeah.
he's the lion of the tribe of Judah. He was born of a virgin, Virgo birth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And which is in the house of Bethlehem, which is actually a star system in the constellation of Virgo. It's called the house of bread, and he's the bread of life. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same story. And Carl Jung had a really cool way of looking at it. It wasn't saying that it was a lie or that it was wrong. It's saying that we're so fucking awesome, we're so powerful consciously, that our story, the pattern, the original pattern, you can call it the golden ratio, whatever you want to call it, that original God pattern that's in all of us imprints on everything. That's why you see the religious story play out in fucking movies and shit that have nothing to do with that. That's why you can see all of it in the news and the media and through titles of books and and songs. And it's like our collective soul consciousness just imprinting everywhere, including the fucking stars. Because the stars, remember, they're pointing down, they're looking down at us. That's light reflecting. So we are them also. We're the illuminators, we're the fallen angels. We have fallen from down there, and we're in a state of like suspension down here. We're the image. This is an idol. Don't worship idols. Well, guess what an idol is? It's your body, dude. That's an idol. That's the
Mm.
phantom, the illusion. You know, it's like understanding that we are a part of something, that one soul, infinitely resurrecting in spirit. So the angels are us, the stars are us, the animals are us. It's all us. The only illusion is division, and the only way that you can actually have an experience is by forgetting. That's why we have that veil of forgetfulness, is forgetting that we're all one. Otherwise, we would just be up there on God mode all together in our infinite, space, and there would be none of this, right? We get the experience, the
Mm.
highs and the lows because of evil, because of distortion, because we dropped down. We did it on purpose, like we did it on purpose. And we are what you call the universe is, its soul, its intelligence, its awareness looking back at itself in essence. It's pretty fucking wild. And all the older schools of thought when it comes to spirituality was that we were the center of creation, you know. And if you look at things, we're born in a womb. The earth is a womb. It's like the solar system is a womb. A galaxy's a womb. It's like, and a matrix means womb, in Hebrew.
Yeah. No
Yeah, so I
shit,
mean,
man. Yeah,
it's
dude. I
just,
mean, I think that this is where we're getting a lot of it wrong, man. And what I mean by that is there's a reason that, there's ideologies that are pushed onto mankind so fucking hard for free. And I've always had a problem with them because anything that's ever given to the masses for free is always, derived from some sort of an agenda from somebody with a very nefarious, either view, take, or mission for us to kind of go on as a fucking species. But I think that this is why, man, I'm so against it. And it's not me being against people's, belief systems. Like, dude, believe whatever the fuck it is you want.
yeah.
It's just let's stop thinking that the power is outside of you. It
Mm-hmm.
never has been. The power is within you because at the end of the day, it's very simple for me to understand simply because of just how I view it. I see it like this: without my eyes, nothing out here exists. I can no longer see. Without my ears, I can no longer hear. Without my mouth, I can no longer communicate. Without my touch, I can no longer feel. Without my scent, I can no longer smell. So without me creating that which is the world around me, fucking nothing exists, man. So you could talk about your ideologies and the books that you've read and how, this guy is, he came down to save you and died for you, and that's fine. Cool. Do your thing. But the more you look into it, the more you start to realize that this Christ figure
Mm-hmm.
is like the crowning. It resides in the crown chakra. Like even when you're reading the Bibles, man, it tells you that the house of God is down the hall to the right. They're talking about your right brain, where love,
Yes.
creativity, where you reside. And we live in a society where they have purposely kept everybody left brain. So now when you say something like, about an experience that you had, people are like, well, where's the facts?
Yeah.
I want to see analytics. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
dude, there's so much more to us than fucking analytics. And secondly, if you're so fucking analytical, then you might want to look at the fact that humans did not create math. You stumbled upon it. So it's like let's stop talking like we have this, all-knowing new knowledge. Like, guy, there is biological fucking mastery that has been created, that which is us. And you're trying to defy that to tell me that there is some book I can read that's going to explain fucking everything to me. Like, dude, we could sit here and tear books like the Bible apart, but that's
Mhm.
not why I'm here. Why I'm here is to really get through to people that there was a school of thought pre the thought that their thought system was derived from. And
Yeah.
that's what I want people to start to look at, that there was something before this. So like right now, man, I understand people are really like upset with this digital currency. And I'm like, well, if you actually look back, guys, like I'm sorry, but there's been like 600 currencies, and the gold that was sold by fucking Egyptians as currency is still here today. So we need to start
Yes.
thinking of the old and what happened in the old. And over the last couple hundred years is when they've really ramped up. Over the last century in specific, when Rockefeller medicine came in, is when they've really ramped up what is happening to us and the human condition. They've really been changing that. So when you talk about, the story that you were speaking of with Adam and Eve, now I know
Yeah.
the Gnostics have a very different take on the Adam and Eve story. If you kind of go through what that is to explain to people how that worked.
First, I kind of believe that Adam and Eve is the divine masculine and divine feminine, and
Mm,
Adam would be like atom, like an atom, a molecule. Eve, I think it's Eve is evolution or something like that. It's also got the words always. It's word magic, right? When we understand, we
mm,
stand under the spell of the Word, right? In
mm,
the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. And remember, the Word is a vibration, right? And God is light. So the sound was with the light. That's what ultimately they're telling us. Um, and looking at Adam and Eve and that story, I think it's about us. Um, First off, we were both, according to a lot of texts. Actually, the first book of Adam and Eve, which is a Gnostic text, we were in our original form. The angels fell at our feet and worshipped, like in our awesomeness, which kind of tells me that we were God. First off, if angels are falling at your feet, worshiping in this, this story, it's saying like we were androgynes. First off, we were both. We were masculine and feminine. And you've ever heard the story of like Prometheus or Lucifer, this perfect being that God put together, and he jumped out of the womb early, right? So he's still born with both parts. That's the story of us. We're Lucifer as well, the fallen angel, the most beautiful angel, the one of music, which is sound, right? And he was in the
mm,
womb, the cosmic egg, and he jumped out ahead of time, right? He stole the sparks, the 50 sparks, right? If you look at the Prometheus story, he steals 50 sparks, I believe. I want to say from Zeus or whatever, steals 50 sparks of light and comes and mixes it with the clay. That's the story of the archons. That's our story of becoming flesh. And that's why the United States has 50 fucking stars on their flag, honestly. Like,
mm.
and the pentagram is a starfish body, right? It's just the five, 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. It's and pentacles, same way in the tarot, right?
So that's actually really interesting, and I don't mean to interrupt, but really
Go
quickly,
ahead.
do you notice that all, references to whatever God or consciousness or whatever it is that animates us, whenever you refer to it, even Allah is arm, leg, arm, head, all has to do with 5 limbs, all has to do with the self. I just find it really interesting with what you're saying, right? Like everything seems to just lead back to us,
Well, Yod
right?
Hey Bod Hey is hands nailed, feet nailed.
Hmm.
Yeah. Hands nailed, feet nailed. That's a tetragrammaton, which is Jesus or, Yahweh, Yod Hey Vod Hey. It's hands nailed, feet nailed. That's being crucified once again. It's just, it's weird how in the cross being the Ankh, like from Egypt, and the Egyptians
Mm,
actually would take that sacred secretion or that kundalini, that serpent energy when they have sex, which is the power of life. That's why sex magic is so powerful. And they take menstrual blood and semen and all these satanic rituals. It's because it's the actual act of creation, right? Masculine and feminine
Mm.
coming together, and that big bang, right? That cataclysm, that catastrophism, which we see play out every cycle, ends in destruction on Earth. That's why we ain't got no fucking memory of all the ages of past. There's even theories that these collisions, that actual asteroids have impacted the Earth multiple times, and that's where you get like the theories of wormwood, Nemesis, Planet X, Planet Nine. That it's this dark star that comes around, smashes into us, and every time it happens, it creates a new planet, right? As part of the solar system, a new god. And and these are just theories. It's a lot of Eastern beliefs, and then we have like the pre-flood story. It's a biblical story from the Colburn Bible, which talks about Moses and parting of the Red Sea, and how he was this Egyptian pharaoh, and he was they took him out of his land. This comet went past and fucked up the earth, and they all had to run. And that's because the magnetism, the magnetic field was changing. As a result of this cosmic shift and consciousness shifts. Every time this happens too, they say people get extremely weird. In the Colburn, it says they went up on the mountaintops when this consciousness shift happened, and he said and they came down and they forgot their gods and their guides. You know, and
Mm.
a lot of people can look at that many ways. Like, so they came up to this mountaintop, which is up here probably. One could surmise that they're
Yep. Yep.
actually they're in their third eye. They came up to this mountaintop. This cataclysm happened, which was their physical reality, the world being flipped upside down, a magnetic shift, right? Their whole reality, because they know the truth now. They're illuminated, they're enlightened, they can see it. So now anything that was a lie, or that's not true to them, or that's false, or not compatible with their new enlightened frequency has to fall away, right? That's what the 40 days in the desert and all of that is. When you're initiated into the mysteries, they send you out into the desert because that's the only place where all of Mother Nature is separate, right? Rain doesn't mix with mud or dirt and make mud. It's a monsoon. It sits on top of there. Sand doesn't mix with dirt. It's like all of the elements of Mother Nature are separate. So they'll send you out into the desert. That's why you see Jesus. He was tested in the desert, right? It's all this story of where there's no water. Water is the root of life, right? We're 80% water. The earth is 70% water. Water holds memory, you know, and you can even speak to water and it holds memory. You can charge it positively or negatively, so it's like, and think about that when we speak about ourselves, or think
Mm.
about that when we ingest all of this bullshit about how evil we are and how bad we are and how we're fallen and we're flawed and we're powerless. And it's like, if you were an alien race, an alien species, and we have UFOs and all of this now, and people believe with their whole fucking heart, that this is real. But think about it. If there was something outside of the consciousness, right? One of the best ways to like feed on it and make it feel powerless is to have it forget who it is. Forget what it is, forget where it
Mm.
came from, forget that it's in control, right? It's like, if we don't need that, but it needs us, then they have to create this paradigm where we feel like we're nothing without it. It's like any narcissistic, abusive relationship. Like the
Right.
narcissist
Right.
always makes the empath or the victim feel like they need them, so they can continue to feed off of them. And it's like, that's reptilian in nature. That's why reptiles eat their young. They're cold blooded. They lack soul. That's that left brained, mentality. That's the masculine side of our nature, which is warring, controlling, and that's half of who we are.
So, with that being said, now there's a couple things there. So when you talked about the sexual energy, I think that's probably why they've normalized it and made it something completely different than an exchange of energy that it is. I think that they've
Mm-hmm.
stopped that cataclysm between the masculine and the feminine to,
Yep.
obviously you need that sort of energy. That's where they talk about stars colliding. Now, if we are the
Yes.
stars, the stars will collide and then you create a baby. That is the new planet that has been created after these two stars collide. So it all makes a lot of sense, man. And I think that that's why they normalize these things, like you say, to have people forget who the fuck they are. I think that that would be the ultimate way of pure and utter control. I mean, if you think about it, wars are no longer fought with guns and planes and bombs and nukes and all these threats you hear on the news. That's just not going to happen. They have to live in the same place we do. They're not going to blow it to fucking smithereens.
They
They
have
know
nowhere
what's
else to
up,
go. They have nowhere else to
right?
go.
So, but with all of that being said, now there's also another theory about these Anunnaki came from another planet through the hole that's in the ozone and landed here and then created us to be their slaves. Don't the Gnostics have something amongst that where the God that people are praising in the Bible is actually not a good God and he traps us in these human bodies to serve him as slaves? Isn't there something along the lines of that that goes on there too?
Yeah, that would be it would play right into the Anunnaki, Enki and Enlil. Those are the two brothers. That would be like Satan and Lucifer ultimately, right? One's and if you look at Bible, by Baal, right? Two gods, two Baals,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
you hear all through the Bible they talk about Baal, right? He's the gold, the god of gold and currency and all of that. And I'd seen one of your videos where you got into currency and the current and how it's all,
Mm-hmm.
and think about that. That's the waters above the firmament, right? It's actually talking about the heavenly
Mm.
realm. So it's working. So
Mm.
everything that we're doing down here, as above, so below, right? It's
Mm.
it's actually taking place where it matters, right? Where things manifest and are created. So we're speaking it. It's happening. We're agreeing to these things, and they're binding us. And they're using. We don't understand the magic science and how it works the way they do, and we're kept in the dark, we're kept dumb, so they can essentially feed on us. Now, you look at the concept of the Anunnaki, their planet, Nibiru, which ancient Babylonia was a name for Jupiter, by the way, just saying, big red striped planet. It was
Mm.
Jupiter. Their planet Nibiru was losing its atmosphere, and its atmosphere was made of gold. If you look into the Bible, what spirit means or the heavens, it's actually gold, right? So they had this slave race to mine gold, right? This dark skinned slave race, right? So it's dark, like the lower, darker self, right? Like the lower carnal self, this physical race that was being mined for gold, right? They weren't actually going and digging gold.
Mm.
They were mining their souls, right? Their spirits, right? And Earth was this giant monster that was also a serpent called Tiamat that they actually destroyed with Nibiru. They broke it into a bunch of pieces. And Kingu was her lover, and they made him orbit her for eternity, and he's the moon. So
Oh
and there's
shit.
yeah, and there's many stories too about the moon, like with the ancient Zulu. They have this creation myth that all the indigenous people, these lizard people, come down to Earth, said you got to worship us, and they said fuck you, like they're all about the Earth. They don't care about no sky god. Notice Anunnaki, those from the heavens came, right? Sky gods, planets, you know. And so what they did was they drugged the moon, which moon, another word for moon is leaven, which means sin. That's why they talk about the Bible, don't eat leavened bread, right? It's sin. The moon is supposed to have all the planets within it. It's like a satellite, a parabolic dish where the sun's awareness is filtered through and can kind of reflect on us at night. But it's like a fake version of it, and that's why there's a lot of people that talk about the moon's
Mm.
artificial, because it is. It's like an artificial sun, if you will, like a Death Star. You've heard people say that as well, right? So they drug the moon into place, and it caused a catastrophe. And they came back down. And they said, "Hey, you got to worship us now." And they said, "No, still." And they said, "Well, we'll remove the moon and make another cataclysm happen if you don't." And they decided, like, okay, there will be none of us left if they keep doing this to us. And then you hear the story of Enki and Enlil, the two brothers. The one brother, Enlil, he was the Satan-like brother, the Lord Commander, right? and he was a war general. He was actually the younger brother. This is why you always hear about the warrior and the shepherd. Every creation story is two brothers. I don't care if it's the Hopi creation story, Jesus and Satan, like
Yeah.
over and over. And it's, you know, that's that's the red and the blue Kachina too. Like when we look at like the Hopi
Mm-hmm.
creation myth. So the one brother, Enlil, he gets tired of hearing humanity have sex. We were too loud, and he decides to destroy the earth. He brings a flood. Enki, which is his brother, who would be Lucifer, decides to. He actually has children with us. He made us against his brother's command. He got a bunch of Anunnaki women. They genetically altered us with their spliced their DNA with a monkey, basically made us in this tale. And then eventually we were like stupid. We were Neanderthal. We couldn't talk or anything like that. So he actually went and fucked one of the monkeys. And then that's what made, I think the first ones, it was Atme. And then eventually it became Veasudra, which is Noah. And these were his sons, Lucifer's sons, or Enki's sons. And he didn't want them to get wiped out when the flood came. So he came down, even though he swore to his brother he wouldn't interfere, and he spoke to the reed wall, right, and told Veasudra, like, hey, there's this flood coming. You know, you got to build an ark, right? And an ark is also another word for firmament, too. So, you know, it's like a
Hmm.
place of protection. It's like what you could also think of as like a Merkaba, right? Building your own aura, right? Your aura acts as like a magnetic field of protection. And that's why when they talk about cosmic rays and solar weather, this is like fact. When we have CMEs and shit, you know, there's positively charged ions and negatively charged ions. It makes it easier for people to cast spells. You know, it's like if there's certain times because it affects our energetic field
Mm.
differently. So it can make you more susceptible to disease and sickness, right? And then depending on how the stars are aligned as well, you know, uh, that's why everything is very systematic. We have 7 days for 7 planets, right? The 7 colors of the rainbow. These are the 7 sons of Satan, which are, you know, also the archons or the demiurge, you know, and this is the solar system, right? These are the rulers of the reality, or what we call the governors, you know, and then think about government, you know. So government is actually an archonic term, you know, so the governmental system, and it's governing your mental, right? Your mentality, it's governing your mind. So in essence, these energies are controlling your mind. You know, you hear about Mercury, who's Hermes, right? He's the messenger of the gods. You know, and that's the one who brings the wisdom, right? So you're getting the wisdom from the planets, right? You know, through the hermetic process, which means to seal something or occult it or hide it, right? To go within, you know, and it's taken to that process of gnosis. And it's like um, everything that you look at from Illuminati, you know, the Templars, Freemasons. I mean, I don't care what really. Even the regular religions actually are saying the same thing. It's just in a coded method to where, yeah, and I don't
Yeah.
care what religion it is. It's all the same, and there isn't one that's different, bro. Like I don't care if you're Muslim, you're Christian. It's all the same, and they're all worshiping Saturn, the Saturnian sun, right? The Saturn sun, which is the
Mm.
god of this world, right? That's Satan, you know, Hasatan, you know, and that's the planet with the rings, right? Because everything's in orbit, everything's a cycle. He's got the hexagonal North Pole, the all-seeing eye on the South Pole, right? So it's like, you know, and his brother's Jupiter, right? That's Enki and Enlil. Those are the two big dogs, right? And the sun is the sun. It acts as like this portal, this opening from a higher dimensional space that allows energy, light energy, God energy, photons to flow through. You know, and it's like the stars are like holes, you know, like a lattice almost that allows this energy to kind of beam down, and it goes through like, and you can look at the earth as like a third eye for our collective consciousness, right? It's like an eyeball, but
Mm.
it's for all of our collective. And like when we build altars, um, Altars are like fractures in our mind where we disconnect, where we make division, right? In science, cien means to divide, right? So you're dividing the unity of the allness, the wholeness, the oneness, right? To understand it, right? You have to take it apart to understand it. So you have to separate it, and that's why we create division. We will continuously divide into smaller and smaller pieces. That's what type of organism we are. That's how we're able to look at ourselves. That's why we reproduce, right? We're copying, pasting, copying, and pasting. That's why technology mimics what we do, because it's ultimately trying to integrate or interact with our consciousness. That way we can take ourselves to transhuman, right? Which is a next level, right? That would be beyond the physical limitations, and that has to do with the Aquarian age, right? The end of the Piscean age, which is the fish. And think about Jesus and the fish, right?
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
that's the age of water, which is the human body. Okay, now we're going into the age of air. And Jesus, they said, how would you know when the end comes? They asked Jesus this, right? He said, you'll know because you'll see a man. He said, follow the man carrying the pail of water into his house, right? That's Aquarius. It's a man carrying a pail of fucking water into
Mm.
his solar house, his astrological house, right? The house in the zodiac he lives in. It's the Aquarian age. Aquarian is all about rebellion, rebelling against the status quo. That's why you see
Mm.
societal upheaval. All the cycles are ending at once right now. We have a million cycles. We have 3,600 year cycles, 6,500, 12,500, 25,000 year cycles. All these cycles, 50 year, 100 year, 10 year, 5 year, right? 200 year cycles, and they're all based on like Pluto returns and all the orbits of the stars. All these cycles are ending, and they're ending in what Albert Pike, the father of Freemasonry, in his 1871 letter to Mazzini called the Third World War, which is the final social cataclysm, right? Where they create like the atheist and the Zionist, and they all go against one another in this final battle of Christianity and all these religions and all these political schools of thought to crumble society, to break down the barriers or the walls. And the Aquarian age is about the air. Notice he has the pail of water, so he's learned to master the water, right? And he's going into the heavens, into the air, into the consciousness, and it's all about technology as well, right? Innovation and technology. And then you look at where we're going with fucking AI, 5G, the jab, all of this is pushing us to the technological age. And that's where the trans comes in. We're integrating back to the androgyne, right? Like back to the heavenly being, back to the angelic being, which was both masculine and feminine. That's so you see transgender, transhuman, trans. It's a transition.
So with the whole trans thing, that actually, I have a couple questions about that then, because when you see the transgender movement being pushed now, to anybody that is right of mind, period,
Yes.
um, you know innately that it feels wrong,
Yes.
right? We don't want it pushed on our children. We just like leave the fucking kids alone. You do whatever you want to your body as an adult, make your decisions. I don't care as long as you're old enough to kind of, like 18 plus. Like that's
Sure.
the moral standard in which society is put on, put in place to judge when a person is of sound enough mind to make their own choice. That's
Agreed.
fine. Do you don't give a fuck, right? But if the if our quote unquote, God side of us was an androgen anyway, then why doesn't it feel right then? Why are we so innately afraid of it if it is kind of bringing us back to our kind of highest form? Like I'm kind of confused
Because
there.
this is what happens. Everything that happens in the spiritual gets distorted down here, right? Because this is like a lower
Mm,
vibratory state, so it gets distorted down here. So the truth is, you already have masculine and feminine, dude. And, and
yeah,
so
of
do
course.
I.
Yep. Testosterone,
And
estrogen, yeah.
even though we've been conditioned to not have emotions and shit because we're men, we don't cry, there is traditional masculine values, and it's beautiful to embrace some of those, but it's also, it's meant to be like a spiritual path of embracing the feminine as well. It's not to mutilate your fucking self, like do no harm. Like, and I'm not
Mm.
saying I feel like anybody that wants to do what they can, they want to do with themselves as adults, right? We wouldn't let heterosexual strippers and stuff go into schools and target children. So we know right there that that's a perverse agenda. And that's, once
Oh,
again,
okay.
them inverting, a truth, or inverting a concept to use it against us, right? That way
Gotcha.
we are
Gotcha.
always externalizing an enemy, which is externalizing our energy. We're giving our energy to an outside force.
So what you're saying is, and okay, this makes sense now. So initially our God self is just telling us to embrace the fact that we are both like every one of us has a bit of the divine masculine, the bit of divine
Yes.
feminine.
To
We
be
all have
more in
testosterone and
balance.
estrogen. Right. So that's what they're trying to pervert then. They're trying to
Yeah.
pervert our actual being and turn it into some physical fucking perversion of that, which would be mutilating genitals and doing the Baphomet, right? Like turning you into both, and starting with the two kids that are looking up at him, right? Like, or
Hmm.
it, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
um, it, I guess we should just throw them on a Bud Light can, eh?
Yeah. Hey, and
But
that's why you see
I
all of
mean,
this right now. And
end
it's
of
to
the day,
also
man,
turn
it
people against each other. It's like to make people have more hatred in their
of
hearts.
course. Mm, So what you're saying then basically is they are trying to use this, and fuck, man, I have a hard time calling it like a Luciferian or a satanic agenda,
Hmm.
because that's not really who it is. That's like the front character. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? That's what
Yeah.
you see is like, oh, it's satanic, like the horn god and shit. Like, yeah, sure, that's kind of what they're, trying to represent with all of their
Yeah.
symbolism, but that's not really, who's controlling the show here. That's not really who's calling the shots. So when we think about these agendas and politics, and this I actually want you to touch on, because you were speaking
Okay.
about the blue and red. Now let's first go with what the significance of blue and red is with what you were
Okay.
talking about earlier.
Blue and red is actually stands for solar and lunar, and these are the two pillars of like illumination, right? Hercules pillars, right? The pillars of Hercules,
Mm,
Heliopolis, the solar temple, right? These are the two pillars. This is what holds the whole system together. This is masculine, feminine, right, left, black, white, up, down, left, right? And that's why we have the Republican, Democrat, right?
right.
Yeah. This is Inky and Enlil. That's who it is. These are the two brothers, and it's no matter what way we have of like looking at it ultimately, and that's why all through the Bible, and I believe the Bible does have like a lot of good nuggets of truth in there, like for real,
Of course.
depending on how you interpret it, right? It's one of the most Masonic
Hmm.
books in the world, by the way. People have no idea. There's more mysteries and spells in the Bible than any book on the face of the earth. It's the most powerful book there
Of
is,
course. Of
hands down,
course.
hands down. And I know
Hmm.
people that practice witchcraft and they do it through the Bible. That it's like heavy, people that do some crazy shit and it's through the Bible. They're like reading these verses, and that's why you have the two gods, solar, lunar, right? One's nocturnal. He's the money god. He's Venus. In essence, it's love, it's sex, and that's your progressive, blue side, and then you have the red side, which is like your fiery serpent. He's the war side. He's conservative. He's Trump. Like, so they both embody
Mm.
different archetypes, and it's Satan and Lucifer are the two archetypes that they embody. So
Yeah, yeah, and they do that. You'll see that everywhere in modern culture too. I mean, you look at even if you go back to the fucking Mithras, like the Mithras religion still celebrates the red and blue as well, right? Their
yeah,
character that they believe in look an awful lot like fucking Superman. Superman, red and blue. Captain Marvel goes
yes,
along the constellations, right? Red and blue. America, red, white, and blue. Captain America, red, white, and blue. Everything is red, blue, red, blue. You see it all the fucking time. Those are constantly two of the most dominating colors in all of society, right? And this is
Mhm.
what we see this repeat over and over and over. And I feel like it's going to be one of those things that we continue seeing. And whenever you see people getting, they're getting us to worship, which actually used to mean worship, right? That's where it comes from. That's why, our land of our maritime admiralty laws, that's where it comes from. The Parate, the mermaid, America, right? The water. It's all based on the water
Which
being us.
the
That's how they
children of
control
Zeus or the
us.
children of Poseidon are mermaids, right? And that's the god with the pitchfork. That's the Lord of the Water, which is also Enki. His real original name was Ea, which meant Lord of the Water, and he changed it to Enki, which is Lord of the Earth. So I mean, it
Mm,
all connects. It's so fucking wild, and it's like, what do they say? Uh, Truth, or what is it, fiction is stranger than, or reality is stranger than fiction, and it's like fucking, it's spot on. I was actually watching one of
yeah.
your or listening to one of your podcasts on Spotify, and you were talking with a gentleman, and you guys were discussing like how people will look at you like you're literally fucking, you're crazy. It's like this whole reality that doesn't exist to 99.999% of the world. And I feel like, I hope the Aquarian age, and you've heard a lot of shit about it, and a lot of people attach Luciferianism to that as well, the Aquarian age. Um, uh, but it's because of the rebellion, and Uranus, Uranus. It's all about dreams, right? The dream world, which is our
Mm,
conscious reality. I feel like we're being forced now to shift into a higher vibration, higher frequency, and you see the systems of control, they're falling down, bro. Even normal, everyday fucking people that had no clue, at least know by now that they were lied to, during the last couple
mm,
years, that they were lied to, that they were fed propaganda, that the people that are doing this don't hold themselves accountable whatsoever fucking ever, and it doesn't matter if Hunter Biden emails or goddamn Mar-a-Lago Trump. They never go to jail. They never get in trouble. They're all playing for the same fucking team. They're all being paid by the same fucking people, and they play the sides, and they play them against each other and act like they're on your side, and what do they actually ever do that benefits us? Nothing.
mm.
Nothing.
Actually, with what you were saying with the water and talking about the being that holds the pitchfork, and just as we're getting through that age, right at the tail end of that, the Aquaman movies come out and they're huge, and then the same actor that plays that comes into this new movie called Slumberland, where he's talking about the dream world, and he's this, goat horn being that's walking this kid through the dream realm, and it's so fucking crazy. That's almost letting you know, like, hey, we're using this guy to kind of portray to you the ending of one era and the entrance into another, because they always tell you, it's part of how they dodge karmic laws. They have to let you know, prior, not directly, indirectly, because
Yeah.
the way this cult works, guys, is that they're allowed to walk you to the cliff and then convince you to jump. They're not allowed to push you, but they're allowed to coerce you. They're allowed to do these things in order to make you throw yourself off the cliff. That's why with the jab, it was the same thing. Hey, you don't have to take it, but you also don't have to work for me. You don't have to take it, but you also can't go into the store. You don't have to take it, but you also can't eat. So you, by your own free will, as long it may seem like it's not, but they have programmed the matrix in a way to make you so reliant on their services that the moment they say, we'll just take a little bit of this away, buddy, you fucking jump. You're just like, all right, well, the voice tells me to jump. And then they're like, don't, we'll catch you. I just need you to jump. Right.
Yeah.
So
You
that's
run
why
and
there's no
jump. Like
liability
people
for any
ran to,
damages.
they lined up to jump.
Right. But because they've been convinced by this sorcery. It's like when people are reading words and they're like, oh, English, there's nothing in the English language that is casting spells. I'm like, dude, you're spelling, you're writing in cursive, right? Like, dude,
It's
you're
English,
literally
angel.
speaking, you're babbling in Babylonian.
Yeah,
right. And I
yeah,
think it's so hard for people to, I think it's just it's tricky for the mind to endure something that can absolutely flip everything that you believe, everything that you have come to quote unquote understand, because you are understanding
yeah,
everything that they've told us. And now we're starting to, we're starting to truly understand what's happening so we can in the future overstand it, right?
yes,
So I
yeah,
want your opinion then on, if this age is the age of technology and evolution, and how does this go? Because if it's something that is supposed to happen, right?
yeah,
Actually, you know what? Before this, guys, sorry, I fucked up. There's all of these books, especially something like the Bible, that specifically, and we know that it's one of the most Masonic books. You ever look at, the Masonic Lodge, they have the King James version in there. That's what they do. King James, you look at who he was, you trade back and back and back. You can follow that shit. But there is a lot of good in that book too, and it's all
sure,
interpretation. It tells you that it's all, it's all allegorical. It states that in pretty well every chapter before you start getting into it. Now, with them using these books, it makes me wonder then, why would they tell people to not look at the constellations? Is it to keep people kind of completely lost onto our natural cycles and how to follow them and kind of live our life according to the constellations? Because there was actually a podcast that Michael Tessarian was doing, and the gentleman that he had on was talking about he went to this guy who's never been educated at all, middle of Africa. Then he walks up to him and he has a translator with him, and he asks this old man, never been to school, bro. This guy just isolates pretty well by himself. And he asks this man, he says, have you ever read the Bible? And the old man looks at him and he just points up at the sky and he says, if you want to understand the Bible, you just look here at the stars. And for years, he didn't know what he meant until he realized that it's just all an astrotheological story
yeah.
speaking of God's son. There's one son. He has 12 disciples. There's 12 months in the year, right? Like, well, in the new year, right? In the Gregorian year, right?
Mhm.
So if they tell you not to look up, why? Why is that?
Mm. Um, I think ultimately, if you think about it, like the Navy, right? Sailors, what do they use to actually guide them on the seas, right? Like, and
Hmm.
when it talks about like the waters of the firmament and all of that, the waters actually means sea foam, which is semen. So it's about reproduction once again, right? And when you
Right.
understand and you can understand how all of these different frequencies, these deities, these archetypes interact with us and how they're a part of us, well, then you would be able to navigate not only just where you're at and the space you're at, but you would have a bearing on like your spiritual process. You would know based on, and that's what astrology is all about. Like, based on the alignments, I can tell you what season we're in and what type of problems are going to pop up in people's life the most and what we're going to be confronted with on a soul level. And it's like it doesn't look exactly the same for everyone, but I promise you there's a version or a variation of it playing out in everybody's life. And it also plays out on a global collective level. So if you understand, that this is a perfect time for deception, right? A perfect time to start a pandemic, a perfect time, like, then you would be able to see these things coming, and there was actually I think it was Saturn square Uranus was every time they had a lockdown. It was that particular alignment. I don't know fucking why,
Right.
but it was Saturn square Uranus, and a square is four 90-degree angles or angels, right? And it's like the nine is the six upside down, right? So, and angles is also like the Masonic angle, right? Our space, the planets, that's curves, right? It's curved, it's circular, it's cyclical. And then down here in the abstract world, below, it's angles, right? Which is geometry, right? So it's a sacred
Hmm.
geometry. So if you understand what degree a planet's at, right, you know that 29 is the ending of something, 0 is the beginning of something. If it's in this type of archetype, it'll have this type of theme, and you'll be able to navigate life just way, way easier. You'd be able to understand yourself way better. You'd be able to be in tune with others. That's why they call tarot card reading, astrology, all that divination. It's divining the future, divining, the reality, right? And when something is divine, it's holy, it's spiritual, it's being able to tap into the spirit. And they're going to call these things pseudoscience and all of this, but
Of
at the end of
course.
the day, huh?
Of course they will. And I mean it's one of these one of these very weird discussions to have because everything that you're talking about helping the human overstand where it is in time. I mean, that's why all of these clocks worldwide, they're all off, right? It is
Yeah,
something that has just been created as a metric for people to kind of, just blow your fucking life away, not know where you are. Oh, where you are? Well, you're here at 12:05 p.m. Like, no, 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 no.
yeah,
Where the fuck are you in time, right? I think that
yeah.
that's one of their ways of keeping us entirely confused as to where we stand as human beings. But when you talk about like why they did these things with the cube of Saturn, I'm pretty sure we all know, you know, why these are happening. But when you look at things like meditation, tarot, I mean, these Bibles also tell you that all of this is witchcraft.
Hmm. Yeah.
So it's kind of like, well, if all of these things are designed to actually help the maybe not the physical, but our spiritual self find where we are in the ether, then why is it that these books that are because dude, like here's where the
And it's
confusion
because they're
lies, right? I
systems
have
of
a
control. They're designed
sure.
as systems of control. And if you think about, those two gods, and that's what the Gnosticism believes, is that those two gods in the garden were brothers. They were fucking good cop, bad cop. They were in it together. This was a trick being played on. It's like, oh, here's this tree, but don't touch it. It's like, but we put it there, but don't touch it. Surely you will die. And it's like they didn't die when they ate it even. It's like, so they were lied to from the start, first off, right? And it was a different type of death.
Mm,
It was an ego death that they actually died. And it introduced in these cycles, like I said, the zodiac wheel is a process, archetypes that we evolve through, and we do this in our soul cycle. A lot of people believe this is like a soul cycle, like we cycle over and over and over as these fragments of the creator until we return to that perfection, and then we come back to the creator. These angles actually are what traps us in here. It's like if you think about when you turn on a light in a dark room, it always leaves the corner last, right? That's always the darkest part of a room, is a corner, because it's an angle. So that's where the
mm,
darkness, the dark energy stays. So it's like ultimately this is like this refinement factory where we're put through the fires, and they burn the impurities out of us by our life that we live, the hardships, the lessons, right? It cooks the bad out of you. And that's why it says, God says, I'll cast my net, gather mine together, and refine them by the fires of affliction, purifying them like gold. Right? Once again, gold is spirit, silver is soul, in the Bible, and that net is that magnetic field. I'll cast my net, my aura, right? Refine them by the fires of affliction, purifying them like gold. God corrects the ones He loves, right? It's like over and over this theme of being redeemed through pain, through loss, through and is this a narrative that we're being fed to keep us trapped in a system of pain, or is this all actually part of a process that really does allow us to grow and evolve? And is that the only way to experience the magic of unity, perfection, and love is by being apart from it, you know, and being reunited
mm.
to it? So it's like having that pain, that loss, that experience allows you to appreciate when you reconnect, to the light or to love or to goodness. Yeah.
Mm. And when you speak about, all of these angles, and that's where a lot of people can start to really read things like Pao Chang, word magic, and start to realize what these angles have to do with angels and angelish, the language
Yes.
itself, and that of which we
Anglo-Saxons.
speak. right? The Anglo-Saxons, right? And what I find is really fucking neat is the people like the ancient Egyptians, for instance, they used to consume things like the Asian water lily that were highly concentrated, dimethyltryptamine. And those were
Yes.
the only people that were allowed to quote unquote connect to the gods. And all of the people, even nowadays, that go into these trips, they all, for one, regardless of where you are in the world, people never met each other in their lives, but they all experience the same deities when they use these, which is, I
Hmm.
guess you could call that speaking to God. But when you talk about none of the deities being human, them all being animals, and then you see all the animals in the zodiac, it really makes you wonder. And well, one thing that they all say is everything is perfectly geometric. Everything is all geometrical fractals that are all together. They look like shards of glass. And it's kind of like, well, how was math made? And it's like, well, the people back then, I mean, you have Moses speaking to a burning bush. And if you look at the bush that he was fucking speaking to was so highly concentrated in dimethyltryptamine that's like, yeah, the motherfucker spoke to God. You know what I mean? Like he was tapping into that, what brings you into the dream realm when you enter REM sleep. Like he's tapping into that exact same, like he's getting subcutaneous fucking DMT. Like, of course he's speaking to fucking God right now. He has
Yeah.
entered the realm that is now illegal,
Yeah.
right, for us, but for them, I mean, dude, they used to burn that shit in churches, so only the kings were allowed to do these things. So it
Hmm.
makes you wonder, right? But when it comes to this age that we're entering, and this is the question I was getting to before, where do you see this going then? Because if we are naturally entering into this cycle, how does humanity leverage it in a way that is beneficial to us? And what do we have to watch out for? Because we all know the AI, they're gonna try to fucking chip your head, transhumanist agenda, and completely rid of the turn you into a fucking piece of controllable tech. So how do we avoid that?
Well, first and foremost, I think by understanding that we have the power, that we don't have to take on any fucking narrative or timeline or bullshit that anyone or anything is trying to give to us. Like first and foremost, like we know the news pushes one thing, mainstream media pushes another, YouTubers and shit push some other shit, that they usually regurgitate from some other shit, and it's like, it's
Mm,
about us being true and authentic to ourselves, appreciating the differences in one another, like, and understanding, like, I have one piece of the puzzle, you have one piece of the puzzle. Both of our pieces are infinitely important and have infinite possibilities, and and each and every person matters, and it's like on how we view, like we can make this heaven or hell for us, depending on how we perceive it. Perception is reality. If you think about what you even see, which we see images, it hits our light upside down, right? Because remember, we were created in the reflection of the waters above, so literally our reality is upside
mm,
down. Our images hit the back of our eye and they're flipped the right way up. And then the ocular nerve doesn't even connect to the brain. So there's this one little space where we actually create all of it. It's like it's not even, a physical thing that's happening. It's being animated deep within us. So it's like we're in control of the way we perceive it. We're in control of how we think about it, and our thoughts, these transmissions that we call thoughts, and that's why Toth, Totme, thought, that's in Hermetics, the original, he was Hermes as well, the master of wisdom, the occult knowledge, right? It's in our thoughts. It starts with our thoughts and what frequency we're on, which is what we're going to attract into our life. So the primary law is frequency. The secondary law is attraction, right? So whatever frequency we're vibrating at, whatever we choose to believe, and it's like respecting one another's truth. If you want to, you know, maim yourself and call yourself a different species altogether. I don't care. That doesn't harm me. Do no harm. Don't put out bad. Don't get involved with their narratives. Don't divide from one another. Respect and love the differences. And I feel like as long as we stick to what's true, and learn how to tap into what is true too by judging, like, how does it make you feel? You know, is it
mm.
something that will disempower you? Is it something that's going, because a lot of times the worst things are done in the name of something good, right? The war on terror, the war on drugs,
Mm-hmm.
the war on COVID, all these different things were in the name of something good, you know. And if you think about every movement that's happening today, whether it's a patriot movement, which we know that's being hammered lots, like to the people in spiritual communities, truthers, it's almost like if you're not a fucking Trump supporter, then you're a black sheep, now, because they've labeled that
Yep. Yep.
side, right? That's the truth side now. And it's like back in the day, it was classic liberals that were actually the truth side previous. And so it's like it's neither side. It's understanding that every time we choose, right, we're dividing ourselves. So and Christ said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." So every time we pick a side and we
Mm.
divide, we're dividing against ourselves because ultimately we are connected. So it's like it's choosing not to choose. It's not allowing the system to chop you up into pieces and get your energy spread out all over the place. Being the master of your own reality, and understanding that you're in control of your life. Nobody else's, but yours. You're the top of the food chain. You're the
Mm.
top of the pyramid in your reality.
Mm. So, with all that being said, though, I have to ask the question, like, at what point do have an understanding that kind of, I am you, you are me, we are all one,
Mm-hmm.
and then start to realize that, well, this 1% is fucking insane. Because at the end of the day, man, like, they are carrying out an agenda that is trying to harm the 90%, and they are backed by this giant media machine that is almost forcing a divide there. But you see, like, when people get canceled, right? Like, someone will get canceled, and then all of a sudden, boom, their platform shoots through the fucking roof. They're richer than ever because the people don't actually stand for the fucking loot. The who knows what the fuck it is, man? Like, it's lunacy, it's insanity, it's fucking degeneracy. I don't know what to call it, but it's fucked up. So what I'm saying is, even if somebody wants to, chop themselves apart and whatever, you already know that there is a division that is created between that person and you, and they are not going to stop until you praise what they have done. Now, at what point do you draw that line? Because even the word Lord, like, people think that Jesus being Lord, like, Lord is somebody who rules with the sword, buddy. Like, that is a man who rode a horse and used to fucking slay people. That's what the word Lord means, right? So it's like, at what point, though, do you feel we have to kind of create division lines and say, hey, man, division is sometimes healthy in, like, when it comes between people who are trying to harm humanity and those who stand for it? Like, where is that line?
Uh, Man, I am, and Lord also means archon. So Lord is another word for
Mm,
archon, govern, control, right? So, yeah, I feel like there is a point, and we are kind of at that point. It's like where you have to draw a line in the sand. You have to say, I'm not going to do anything that I don't feel comfortable doing. I'm not going to go against my moral fucking compass. I'm not going to
mhm,
go against what I value. And if that makes me at odds with somebody, then so be it. Because I know what's best for me, and I can't save everyone else, but I can do the most I can do for everyone else by doing the most I can do for me, by saving myself, in essence. Like by being the best version of me I can be, then I'm raising the vibe of others. I don't care what other people
mm,
do. And you know what? Let's say hypothetically there are these rare few that operate on this very, very high spectrum or frequency. Um, if we have faith that ultimately good wins, and we know that it does, or else there wouldn't be a system, right? If negative was able to feed till there was nothing, we wouldn't keep going. So
mhm,
ultimately, it
mhm.
seems like good does win out at the end of these cycles, or else they couldn't
Yep,
start again. There would be nothing
sure.
left, right? If evil won, there'd be nothing left because it comes to kill, steal, and destroy. It just takes till there's nothing. So good ultimately wins, and we have to think like maybe this is what's necessary to to get us to see how far we've fallen from ourselves, to get us to see like how
Mm,
disconnected and like to have some fucking, psychopath step in and try to chip your ass and try to, bring this police state about and censorship. And it's like, it's applying pressure until you either break, right? And you give in and you succumb to the system, or you fucking, you Darwin your ass past it by evolving past it. You adapt, and you grow bigger than the problem, bigger than the system. And I feel like it's shifting to that right now. Like that's what you and I are
Mm,
doing. Like we're voices in the wilderness, so to speak, right? Like living off of
right.
wild locust and honey, which is like the sacred secretion. We're living off of our own spiritual essence, and we're out here screaming, saying, "Hey, look, like it. Christ is here," just like back then. We're announcing the same thing, but we're saying it's in us. Like we are the sun they're talking about. That's us. We're tapped into that. We're not subservient to anything here or anyone here. And love is the ultimate frequency. Love is the ultimate vibration. Matter of
Hmm.
fact, our Earth vibrates, I think it's 7.38 hertz, which is equivalent to the vibration of love. Earth is an anagram for the word heart. What is fucking Lucifer, who is Inky, who is the Lord of the earth, the Lord of water, right? He's the Lord of love, too. Music is love. Sound is love. It's like, it's
Mm,
all love at the end of the day. Even evil is love inverted, right?
hmm.
Evolution, right? Love. It's like, I think ultimately at the end of the day, that's what's going to win out. If we can tap into that. Like, if you keep enlightening people, and it's blatant now, it's obvious. So the dummies are going to die off. I hate to say it like that, but they will. Like it's gonna. I feel like we're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
be pressed to that point to where it will happen like that, and then we'll be pressed to the point to where we do have to completely separate and resist, and however that manifests itself, but there will be a separation from it, and ultimately, it's like you can only play the same trick so many times, and it's like they've hit our fathers' fathers, and our forefathers, and it's with the same goddamn plan. Matter of fact, you look at World War I, World War II, World War III, they're all the same, right? Instead of the Red Dawn and the Bolshevik Revolution with Russia, it's the Red Dawn of China this time. And the Bolshevik Revolution had a controlled opposition movement called Operation Trust. Does it sound familiar? Like Trust the Plan, the QAnon shit? Where they actually took the anti-Bolsheviks, and they gathered them all together and they fucking killed them.
Mm.
That's what you're seeing with the Trump movement, was controlled opposition. It's like, notice, it was all of the different ideologies and groups that they're trying to get rid of. Patriots, libertarians, conservatives, Christians, whatever, school of thought, they put it all under, one character head, which was Trump, right? And think about it, Trump, Pence, trumpets, right? The trumpets. These are the
Hmm.
trumpets sounding. Apocalypse means
Hmm.
revealing. The mysteries are being revealed, right? Knowledge is increasing. We're seeing this time, And it's like even the horsemen of the apocalypse, this is the craziest part. Like, chloroquine and shit means pale green horse. Like, so all, like the medicines they're using. COVID 19, Devok 91 in Hebrew means like chaos and destruction. It's like this crazy shit, It's like you can't make this stuff up. And even see like rituals, 19, 9/11, right? This goes back to George Bush and the Patriot Act, who Trump in 2020, the reauthorization of the Patriot Act. This is one goddamn agenda. And notice they knocked down two towers and resurrected a fucking needle, you know? They
Mm.
resurrected a needle in
Mm.
its place, and that's that solar and lunar. They're knocking down the sides. This is the Aquarian age where it's coming together, and they're trying to, this trans, agenda, this transhuman agenda, creating, electronic slaves, if you will, digital slaves. That's why our data is being mined the way that it is. That's why they want to ban TikTok, right? Because it's controlled data by the red dragon of China. It's like we
Mm.
don't even see that the same game plan is being played. And I think it was Stalin that said, or Lenin said, that the best way to control the opposition is to lead them. And like, we have these talking heads and these fucking YouTubers and TikTokers, and they're telling you to sit back, to do nothing, and to trust a plan. Whose fucking plan? Whose plan are we trusting? Why would we sit back and just, let this president, who is obviously in bed with some nasty fucking people before he was ever president, he's with the Jesuits, he went to Fordham University. The whole story lines up with Cyrus, who was the outsider who became the king of Babylon. Babylon fell in Cyrus's fourth year. Guess what? In Trump's fourth year, we had 30,000 troops occupying the nation's capital. So Babylon fell then too. And now look, we're a socialist system under Biden, which means
Hmm.
double-minded, right? So this is like the death of the two-headed beast, or the double-minded. This is, and and if you look at like the Bible, that talks about in the apocalyptic times, the one who was but was not and is yet to come. Biden was, because he was vice president, but he was not. He wasn't the president, but is yet to come. He came after Trump. It's like all of this shit we were told. Nostradamus, that's an occultist. That's a guy who was able to crack, and he used astrology for all of his predictions. You know, all of his predictions. He used astrology to see what the stars were aligning like at what time, and to tell you what we'd be facing based on the narrative, the story being told in the stars, because that is the ultimate Bible. Right? That's the
Hmm.
angels, heralding the story of God down to all of us, is through the stars. It's telling the same tale, right, that we're told in the Bible. Old Testament, New Testament, they're all the same story, just retold in a different version, or in a different way, or a different part of the sky, or, and it's all different representations of the same thing, which is the story of us. It's the story of us. We don't
Hmm.
have to wait on no guy to come down from the sky
Yeah.
and save us. We were given the minds to think. We were given bodies to act, and it's so we could save our fucking selves. It's like
Hmm.
faith without works is dead. So that means you have to put action. True faith is about having action, right? And if you really believe something, you'll put effort, you'll put action behind it, right? And it's like speaking your
Hmm.
truth, doing what you're doing. That's action. That's saying, yo, I fucking believe this shit. I live this shit. I'm putting my face, my name, my livelihood on the line, because this is me. It's like you can get on the
Hmm.
vibration, get on the train or not, take it or leave it, but I'm not going to go along with these agendas. I'm going to be the voice in the wilderness that's opposing these fucking megaphones, these corporate megaphones that are constantly chirping out their bullshit messages to enslave you. Like, if somebody doesn't do it, who's going to do it? If not you, then who? It's like, I feel like we're all being called to step up to the plate. It's like, if you're
Yeah.
spectating and you're observing, and a lot of people will tell you just be an observer, be a witness. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a time and a place for that, but part of being a witness actually means being there. If you witness something, you are actually there. You are a part of it to see it. You may not have, been a part of the combat. You don't always have, not everybody's a warrior, but you don't have to be part of the combat always. But it's like you were there. You were still on the stage. It's like we're deciding right now what role we want to play in this ultimate game of chess. Of we call the spiritual battle of good and evil, the awakening of humanity. It's exciting as fuck. Um, it's something that I feel like we're so lucky to live in this time and live in this age. It's like
Fuck
all
yeah.
these things. Like, dude, I mean, just think about it. Even a few decades ago, the shit we're talking about, it's alien compared, and this is
Hmm.
becoming common knowledge. Common
Yeah.
knowledge. They've had mystery schools and secret societies and clubs and all of this, that only the richest, most elite people in the world had the insight to what's going on. And now all of humanity, in some way or version, is like that 100th monkey syndrome. Is like they've got it now, and it's like they're coming around. Notice everybody's like life coaching, self-helping, 12-step programs. It's all the same goddamn process. Which is the spiritual
Hmm.
process. It is enlightenment. It is awakening. It is initiation. Right? So we're all being illuminated, right now, whether we know it or not. So can we hate the Illuminati, or was it necessary? And it's like the end justify the means is what they say. Order out of chaos. Was it necessary to create the chaos to make us stand the fuck up and see what's going on? To make us say no more, to take the power from the few, give it to the many, right? And is that what actually, has refined us and will refine us moving forward and teach us to appreciate each other in life? Is to be on that cusp, that verge of extinction, and it's like, is this where we go beyond death? We go beyond our limitations, and it's because we came up against the monster that is ourselves, you know.
Mm. Fuck, man. That was genuinely a solid mic drop fucking way to kind of fucking close this out, man. That's one of the most powerful messages I've heard yet to people, and that's the shit I'm talking about, is giving the power back to the people and to stop giving it to, ideologies and things that are outside of you, because I say it all the fucking time, man. You need to be the change that you would like to see in the world. The power is in your fucking hands, man. There's a reason that they talk about hands in history so fucking much, and in all of these, all scriptures was always about your hands. Your hands are what create. So if you'd like to see the reality, that you keep thinking of, well, this is how you're
Your
going to create it.
digits.
It's going to be with, right, exactly. So I always ask every guest this in closing, and I'm going to ask you the same thing. If there is one thing that you could tell people that would help fundamentally changing the world, that be?
Excuse me, you cut out. What'd you say? One thing I could what now?
If there's one thing that you could tell people that would help them fundamentally change their lives or the world, what would that be?
Um, I would tell them that the key is really just going within. That they're the most interesting person in their life. Um, that every one of us are beautiful. Every one of us are important. Every one of us deserves life, deserves happiness, right? And it's like, it's not until we're willing to actually look at ourselves, get honest with ourselves, and get real with ourselves till we can even begin to know who we are, and that's where it even begins to know the world and, to know what it is to experience life. It's like by knowing oneself. That's why it's know thyself. So I feel like that's the one thing is to know thyself. That would help everybody.
Excellent, brother. Well, we're definitely going to have to do this much, much more, because there's so much more that we could talk about. But I appreciate you taking the time to come on today. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, man. Everybody that's watching this, if you would, you can check me out. YouTube.com, Best Damn Podcast Official. Uh, Instagram, Facebook, Best Damn Podcast. Twitter, The Real Best Damn. And I'm on all the platforms, BitChute, Rumble, all that. So I want to thank you so much for having me on. And, appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, buddy. And as
All right,
always,
man.
check you guys later.
Recording stopped.
There you go.
Thanks, man.
Oh, yeah, of course, dude.